It's been hours, long hours. I haven't eaten anything since the burger in American Samoa. I'm still in the same clothes that I've been in since Brightway. I'm hungry and I have to pee, and it already smells like piss and shit in here, and the floor is covered in sand and dirt and bugs. I'm not wearing a watch, but I can guess from the light not coming through the cracks in the ceiling that it's at least evening. We boarded the plane from Apia sometime in the early morning. The flight took around an hour, then the drive here took around 2. My best guess is that we got here sometime around noon, and that I've been in this box going on 6 or 7 hours. If you have a spare closet handy, take a minute, go sit in it on the floor for 6 or 7 hours. If it has tile floors, great. Concrete, even better. Try not to eat all day before you do this. If at all possible, try to get roughed up a little before you start too. Maybe ask a couple of your friends to throw you into the closet. Tell them to lock the door. To really get this exercise though, you're going to need to spend your time in the closet imagining the closet as a plywood box close to 7,000 miles away from where you usually spend your time, and that life, as you now know it, is completely over. While in your plywood box, imagine that none of your friends know that you're on the other side of the world, trapped in a box. Imagine that the person who's closest to you, the person who's supposed to love you unconditionally, the person who's supposed to look out for your well-being, is not only tacitly complicit in your being in this box, but is in fact paying people large sums of money to do this to you. Stay in your box. Do not leave your box. This box is real, and you are in it, and while you're in this box, you realize that you have no idea when you will be let out. You realize none of your friends are capable of coming to your aid. Even though your friends care, there's absolutely no one in the world they can call to come to your rescue. That in here and immediately outside of it is a world that isn't governed by any idea of justice or human rights you've come to take for granted. There will be no legal proceedings, no intervention from the ACLU, no fair trial, no impartial jury, no appeals process. You will not receive a finite sentence. You realize that not only do you have no idea when you'll get out of this box, you have no idea how long you'll be in this other world where no one can reach you. You have no idea when you'll see any of those people you care about again. It can be cold in your box or hot, sweltering or freezing, whichever one is more uncomfortable for you. Just make sure you hate it there. Make sure that you're tired and hungry and desperately in need of a shower. Stay in your box. Make sure it's dark or close your eyes. Become so overwhelmed and exhausted that you give up. Give up caring how long you're going to be here. You give up caring how long you're going to be away from the life you knew. You give up caring whether it will be there when you get back. Stay in your box, but start to transcend your box. Start to accept that none of this matters. Start to accept that none of it is within your control. Start to accept that there's freedom in giving up. Start to accept that all you can do is the lock on the door is being unlatched.
Thank you. Well, I'm here today with JC Sevcik, and I'm with the Kerouac Project, and he's our latest writer in residence. It's December 2015, so welcome, JC.
Thank you.
You've been with us for 3 months now, and you're getting ready to leave, so we thought we'd ask you a few questions. Thank you for reading. Tell us a little bit of the context of this story that you just read us.
Sure. That's a scene from my memoir. The memoir is about my time in the troubled teen industry. When I was 13, I was kidnapped out of a Las Vegas airport, put in a mental institution in St. George, Utah, and then shipped to a behavior modification program in Upolu, Western Samoa. This is part of a network, $1 billion network of privatized prison camps for kids. And the scene I just read takes place immediately after I arrive in Upolu, Western Samoa, in a compound called Le Tiara in the mountains, compound surrounded by barbed wire. And I have just arrived from Utah, and when I refused to engage in mandatory physical exercise that was used as torture upon arrival, they punished me by placing me in isolation, which is a box where you were hogtied with your hands and feet behind your back and left for days at a time. So that was a scene wherein I try to put the reader in that position so they can imagine.
Well, I think as much as possible we can imagine, but it's pretty unimaginable what you actually went through. Now you have a long history with the Kerouac Project and this book. Would you like to tell us how how it all started out?
I would love to. So this whole experience has been really great for me. Because it's kind of a full circle story. When I first came back to writing and wanting to be a writer, I really just wanted to write screenplays like Charlie Kaufman, or short stories like Neil Gaiman, or transgressive novels like Chuck Palahniuk. And I was just a young man who was interested in fiction. But I was studying with Elise Kuznets at Valencia College in an early creative writing workshop for me, and she brokered a deal where we conducted our workshops here at the house, and the writer-in-residence co-taught our workshop. And that was where I met Liza Monroy, who became a good friend and mentor. And she gave me a writing prompt it was a nonfiction writing prompt, and out of that I wrote the first 11 pages of what became this book. And she and Elise encouraged me to sort of abandon those other aspirations and kind of pursue telling the story, because they thought, they're like, you need to tell this story. And so almost a decade later, after leaving Florida to finish an undergraduate at Emerson and then going on to pursue graduate work with Goddard College and writing this book as my thesis, now I'm back at the house revising the memoir.
That is full circle.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you actually met one of the previous writers, and she helped put you on this path. So
yeah.
Lisa, so that's...
Yeah, she actually wrote my letter of rec to Emerson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, we love to hear when, things coalesce like that, to cross-pollinate. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So would you like to tell us what the plans for this book are now and what you've been doing on it while you've been in the house?
Sure, yeah. So I had a finished draft when I came, but I've been revising and just trying to cut it down and get it tighter and ready for publication. And so I've actually been in touch with a few agents, and there's one that I've been talking to that is excited about the work. And so I'm hoping that now I'll start the process of shopping the manuscript.
Great.
Yeah.
And people are always interested in your work habits in the house. How did you you have all day, every day to yourself with nothing else to do except your work? How did you order yourself?
Or
is that not the right question?
No, it's a good question. Some writers are very regimented in their work. I'm more of a binge writer, and so order is not my strong suit. I just sort of just work in fits and bursts, and so I like to perhaps write all day and then stay up all night, and then when I'm totally burnt out, then I will just crash and then spend another day or two recuperating, and then I kind of do that in waves.
So this kind of setting is perfect for you.
It is. It's nice
Yeah.
because I don't have to consider other people, and I can be sort of as free with myself as I need to
Right.
be.
You can be clanging around the kitchen at 3 a.m. if you want to.
Yes, and often. Yeah.
But even though you were on this hectic binge writing, you spent quite a lot of time out in the community, didn't you?
Yeah, well, it's good to get out of one's head. And the community here, I've been so amazed by it. I was here almost a decade ago, and to my memory, the art scene was nothing like it is now. I was so surprised to come home, so pleasantly surprised to come home and see how it had grown. It's just burst and bloomed and blossomed. And the literary scene here now is incredibly impressive. I mean, coming from Seattle,
Wow.
like to hear, I was astonished at the amount of reading series and publishing houses and published authors participating in the scene, and the way the communities coalesced and supported each other.
That is a theme that we hear from a lot of our residents, is that it is a very supportive community here, and it hasn't divided up into factions, and you don't have to be careful about who you talk to, that everybody wants the best for you.
I would agree.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. And what are some of the particular things that you've gotten to do while you've been here with the community?
I have such a long. It's been wonderful. So there are so many people doing great things, and each of them sort of came up and introduced themselves when I arrived, and then invited me to participate in what they're up to, and offered me an opportunity. So I've gotten to speak with John King on several occasions. We did an interview for his podcast, The Drunken Odyssey, and also an interview for a documentary on the Kerouac house he's working on. I've got to speak with Ryan Rivas and Jared Silva, publishers at Burroughs Press, and they also run a radio show called Functionally Literate on WPRK, and they invited me as a guest on their show. Pat Green is a local fixture in the art community who's helps host the There Will Be Words reading series with Jesse Bradley at Avalon Art Gallery. He hosted me on his radio show Rethinking the City, and the show Overtones, Undertones, and Subplots. And Jesse Bradley hosted me at There Will Be Words
Wow.
several times. So
You did all this in 3 months.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was teaching. I've done a lot of as well. I got to guest lecture at Full Sail University and Valencia College several times at Full Sail and once Valencia. We've hosted some readings here at the house. We hosted one with the traveling bard Steve Rogenbuck, the internet famous poet who was wonderful and hilarious. And he came through and we hosted a salon with a senatorial candidate, Augustus Invictus, where we invited people to come and talk about art and politics. We hosted a celebration of Jack Kerouac's daughter Jane Kerouac's work recently, and
that's a lot.
Yeah.
You've been one of our most active residents, but we really appreciate that, and you certainly brought a lot to the community. And another thing that you've done is you managed to get yourself published in the Orlando Weekly.
I did.
Would you like to read us the story from that to finish off?
Sure, I'd love to.
Thank you.
I used to read the Weekly when I lived here, and it was so. Jesse Bradley invited me to a spooktacular, a Halloween spooktacular, and invited me to read a piece of short, scary flash fiction. And then, so I wrote this for the occasion. I'd been working on the piece, but I kind of got it ready, and it went over well. And so afterward, he invited me to submit, and they decided to put it in the issue.
Awesome.
The next day. So this is called After All of Our Apocalypses, Even After Every Armageddon. The phone in this fallout shelter won't work. I've been trying to get a dial tone for days, but the landline's been dead since everything went dark. The cell towers, the internet, the TV, they all went a while back before the electricity, before the city went black. The generator's running out of gas, like the planet. We thought we had that problem solved with solar, and the panels would work if the sun wasn't blacked out by the bombs or the eruptions. Scientists think ISIS and Ebola are probably to blame for the zombies, and that it might all have something to do with the nukes Russia dropped and GMOs and vaccines. Near as anyone can tell, it went down like this. Climate change and global warming led to large swaths of land no longer being arable, and the sharp decline in agricultural yields caused the price of food to skyrocket. People flocked to the cities because there was a better chance of feeding their families. That's why the government was giving out aid rations. When there wasn't enough to go around, civil unrest broke out. The whole country went post-Katrina, rioting, looting. People protested the austerity measures and martial law and the curfew, but the response from the militarized police and National Guard was so swift and forceful that all dissent was quickly quelled. But then illegal aliens carrying Ebola, terrorists who infected themselves with the virus, crossed the border, disguised as refugees seeking asylum from our airstrikes, and immigrants coming here to steal free healthcare and welfare. Biochemical warfare, up close and personal. Sandwich artists sneezing on your 6-inch. Commuters coughing on you on the subway. The first wave was suicide Ebola bombers, but suddenly anyone under the weather was an unwitting accomplice of the IS. With everyone concentrated in population centers, the plague was uncontrollable. After months and months of going without fresh fruit or vegetables, of eating wheat rations and meat pumped full of antibiotics, our entire country was left immunocompromised. Everyone walking around overweight and weak and tired, feeling that feeling you get right before you get sick only all the time. And so the epidemic washed over every city in waves. The Soviets, spooked about being next, split an atom over every major metropolis and declared a quarantine to isolate the outbreak. Geologists believe fracking in the Rockies combined with the payload Putin dropped on Denver is what triggered the supervolcano under Yellowstone. We haven't seen the sun since. The CDC speculates radiation from the blast catalyzed a heretofore unrecognized reaction between a component found in many common vaccines and a chemical byproduct of the agricultural methods used in growing GMO wheat. Presto, Geiger-emitting Ebola zombies, puking and shitting irradiated infectious necro waste, eating anything and anyone they can find before they fall over to become biohazardous landmines. The only survivors now navigate the perpetual dismal dusk of a dead and decaying society. The fetid stench of a rotting and rancid civilization filling our every breath, we search for canned food from one safe house to the next, hoping to come into contact with any other immunes not carrying the virus, but hopefully carrying some Spam or Chef Boyardee. I've been holed up here for days, trying to call anyone, anywhere to figure out where to head next, but the landlines went with the electricity. I've already siphoned every gas tank around that isn't a diesel, and now the generator's almost out of gas, and I'm down to my last 2 tins of Hormel. Sitting on a half-collapsed wall, watching the last lights on the horizon go as the grid finally gives out, the last gasp of our once great nation, my reverie is interrupted by a ringing. The phone. I rush down the ladder and lunge for the receiver. Hello? Hello, this is American Education Services calling on behalf of Sally Mae with an important message about your student loans.
Well, I think you've incorporated every form of disaster into that story. So where will we hear about you next, JC? What are you thinking?
Well, I'm very much hoping that the next news is that Seattle City of Literature had its bid to join the UNESCO Creative Cities Network approved. That is a project in Seattle I'm involved with, and we are a nonprofit that helps facilitate creative exchange in the local literary ecosystem there, and would like to join the UNESCO Creative Cities Network so that we can facilitate more international exchange between artists. And I would be very delighted if that was the next thing anyone heard from.
All right. Well, we'll look for it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.